Did you have lunch?
Dinner for me, but yeah. Yes, I did.
Smash quick dinner.
Yep.
What'd you have?
Sausage and rice. It sounds weird. It sounds weird, but I mean, it was really good. So, you have a little grub in between sessions,
I did. I got a little snack, a little something, something.
a little
Yeah.
Lunchable.
No, no, yeah. I've learned that if I eat before doing the podcast, it like you're burping, you're drinking water, it messes with you. So I've learned, Misfits. I'm here for you. This is professional. Roll those credits. Episode 54. Let's go. From Sydney, Australia, all the way to Portland, USA, two misfits hang out after class to riff on the B-sides of professional life. These are your professional misfits. All the way from Sydney, Australia, I am your host, Christopher Sellers.
Portland, Oregon, I'm Broedy Ipox.
And we are your professional misfits where we riff on the B-sides of professional life. And this episode is brought to you by IGU. It's an old game with a new twist where modern innovation and nostalgia come together to bring you tag for today. Boom. Amazing promo. Episode 54, B. Misfits, we're talking about how to be a loner, when to be a loner, why to be a loner, who to be a loner, and what to be a loner. Why time alone for yourself with no one else under the influence of no social pressures is hugely valuable and healthy and something that you should all make time for. Broedy, how are you? How was lunch?
Wonderful. I'm waiting for the bus. Just throw it on me.
No, just a little bit of an ease in. Do you find value in alone time? Because I know, like, for many, being alone or wanting to be alone has a bit of a social stigma and a personal stigma around it. So how does it play into you, and like how valuable is it to you in your life, a bit of alone time?
If this gives it any context, through my 20s, every single month I would take a solo trip where me and my dog would just sometimes drive out in the middle of nowhere and just sleep in the car for a night or two. And
I've never heard this story.
Yeah, I did that religiously. My parents thought I was nuts, dude. My parents thought I was nuts. Yeah. So it's important.
Why?
I think then I was reading things like Into the Wild and just really disassociating with the idea of like modern society and like having my little 20s crisis where I was like starting to realize and wake up to a lot of things. Mm-hmm. And it was always just a reset for me. And I don't even think I necessarily did it that way intentionally. I'll be brutally honest with you. I think I did it just so I could say I was doing it.
Yeah.
I'm being so serious because
I dig it, man. Yeah,
because there was times legitimately I would just jump in the car. I didn't have any fucking food, no sleeping bag, no nothing.
It's so emo, bro.
And just go.
Like, and then come back after a weekend. It's like, where you been, Breeze? It's like, I've been out. I've just been out camping, man.
Fucking yeah. It was an interesting practice.
So deep. He's so mysterious. Wow.
Yeah, it was an interesting practice, but it it carried over. Today I would kill for that right now. And it's not that I can't have it.
This is my follow-up. Do you get any time alone as like a dad with 5 kids?
No. Even the gym, you know what I mean? Like the gym is my me time, you know, but it's summer, so they'll con their way into going to the gym with me and I'll have to watch them on the basketball court while I'm trying to do my thing or whatever it is. It is what it is. It's a different kind of world for that sense, like in the degree that you have to find solitude in places that you didn't normally think it existed, and that might be literally 5 feet outside of the house where the volume level's just a little bit lower, and you know, you might be able to read a paragraph without losing your fucking mind. But yeah, no, I don't, and I think I need to make time for that, because yeah, it was so impactful for me. Like, it really, even if doing it for the kind of like subconscious accolades, like it changed a lot in me. I learned a lot about myself, and I think even without intentionally doing it, I have faced the test. Do I like being alone? And I like it, bro. You know, like I like who's in my head, you know, and I miss that space sometimes. So yeah, long-winded answer. I like being alone.
Cool. I'm
How about you?
Down. Yes, obviously. We've talked, I'm sure, at length about, like, I'm a hardcore introvert. It wasn't until only in the last
But you're
decade.
very social. But you're very
look, yeah. There's okay, it's hard to talk about, you know, it's hard to talk about yourself, like, without sounding like a tool. So look, I am aware that I have social intelligence, sort of charismatic, can hold a conversation with most people, and like glide through the room and do all of that. That's cool.
good.
But that is 10%. If I had my choice, I'd have like one or two people that sit down at a table, have a couple of coffees and like whatever, and like talk about, we would do this. We talk about life in the universe, right? Whenever I would go to parties or like big group things or whatever, people know you've got me for a solid 60 minutes and I'm out. You know what I mean? That's just, and
social with a battery. That's fine.
Yeah, hardcore introvert. And it wasn't until, I was about to say, like, in the last decade or so, after I read Quiet by Susan Cain, I know I've talked about that at length. If you want to learn anything and everything about introverts, read that book. If you're an extrovert and want to understand introverts, read that book. And she lays out, excuse me, all the conditions and all the factors and all the sort of personality types and things of what introversion is and how it behaves. And I went, holy fuck, like, I'm not just the weird arts kid. I'm not just a fucking loner. I'm not just all these sort of things. This is literally how I operate and why. Amazing. Great. I'm at peace with that. Fantastic. So yes. You can see the journals on the back wall. I journal at least every day, sometimes twice a day. That can only be done on your own. You know, even when I was in relationships, like, still kept a journal. You know
what did that look like? What did that look like? Just journaling specifically when you're in a relationship, or say you visit the folks or you travel. How do you find that piece of?
I make the time. I was lucky in my last major relationship. We were together for 5 years, and at least we met when we were working together. So she kind of had a vibe. Like, you passively get to know each other over some time and whatever else. So she knew it was sort of a thing for me. And I guess when you meet the right person and you're lucky, they kind of accept a lot of you for who you are. You know what I mean? It's like, Chris does this, Chris journals, Chris goes to the cafe, like, takes time alone for himself to do these things. And she was secure enough to be comfortable with it. And she trusted me and I trusted her. And that was that. So there was never ever the discussion of, I'm leaving the house. Like, where are you going? I'm just going to go journal at the cafe. Why? Who? When? How? Can I come? Why can't you talk to me about it? Like, it was this, she was mature enough to understand. You know? Is
it something that you feel you have to step away from people to do?
I can't do it with somebody sitting across from me at the table. Like, no fucking chance. It's, you know, it's
if you do have kids, you're gonna have to readjust.
No, maybe or maybe no. I don't think so, because I think it would just be like, it's about carving out that time and taking that discipline responsibility. Right, and I think children can learn to respect boundaries like anybody else.
Yeah.
Of like, you will go here and I am writing or whatever, and then I will have time for you. That's something.
You're right. For instance, Misfits, Jax in season 1, I listened to season 1 during our break, and Jax had a couple moments where he would
run
knock
into the
on
studio.
knock while we were in episode. Sometimes those were cut, sometimes those were left in, but now he knows, like, this is a boundary and we do not have one interruption. We can go back to back. We can.
True.
Yeah, that's nice point. Yeah, fair enough.
So it's even here's a really good example. A couple of months ago, my grandmother passed away. I went back home to Newcastle to hang out with the folks. Morning of the service. The service was at 2:00 in the afternoon. I mean, my folks are sort of in a little, I'll say, coastal village, like lake village, right? I said to my old man, I said, "Do you mind? I've got my journal. I just want to grab a coffee somewhere quiet and whatever else." He's like, "Oh, yeah." And so he took me to some little cafe and then sat down with me and had a little pastry and whatever else. And we had chit chat about nothing in particular on the morning of his mother's funeral, but whatever. And I was still feeling really edgy because you haven't actually given me what I wanted. And I had to, with, kind of suck it up and go, "If you don't mind, is there somewhere where you could drop me where I could just journal and like process some thoughts for a bit?" And he totally understood. He's like, "Oh yeah." And then like we'd drive 2 or 3 blocks around the corner and like drop me off. And he's like, "Just give me a call when you want me to pick you up." And that's all I needed. Like, I wandered around the lake for a little bit. It was beautiful. Took 1 or 2 photos. Sat down at this little cafe that used to be a fire station. Had a Portuguese, right? Had a Portuguese tart the size of my fist with some coffee. It was delicious. Sat there in the sunshine and just sort of wrote down some thoughts for about 45 minutes. Gave him a call. Come pick me up. Done. So I will make time. I will ask for the time. Most of my immediate circle respect that, and that's cool. It's never really been a challenge.
Yeah, I'd argue that they respect it because you do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it seems, and I don't know if maybe boundaries isn't the right word, but it seems like you have distinct boundaries around that, which is kind of what I was saying with getting out and being alone. I really need to set parameters that are kosher for everybody, and I need to hold to them because, again, the impact is substantial on things like this. So
we start to scratch the surface on these Misfits, and like, why are we having this conversation? Like, what's the value in being alone? And this came out of a conversation that Broedy and I were having a little while ago. Is that, let me take you back to first year of my acting college, right? So you've auditioned, you've got in, you start going to acting college. First year of acting college is really examining, who you as an individual are, like how you walk, how you talk, how you behave, how you like might censor yourself, and all these sorts of things. So you get to understand this instrument and this person. And what's really, really interesting that comes out of first year acting college is that you start to understand how heavily and how subconsciously you censor yourself with everything, with the way that you talk to people, because you're socialized by your parents and schooling and everything else to be nice and polite and inoffensive and all of these things. Like, there's subjects that we don't talk about that we talk about on the Misfits. There's words you don't say. There's opinions you don't have. So a lot of this and a lot of the way you hold in your body, like, what becomes very, very clear is that we're all social animals, and it's really baked into us at an early age what is acceptable and what isn't. Some of this is passive, some of it is active, a lot of it is subconscious. Okay, but what you'll once you start to unpack like how much of this, you become shocked and sort of terrified at how much you really do censor yourself. And for all our like professional misfits, you can tell the difference between, when you step into work at the office to the moment that you step out and then kind of get home. You can take the jacket and the bag off and like, fuck, right? So it's that sort of thing. Now, we also don't really realize is how much of this social influence impacts the subjects you will study at school, the career paths you are likely to take, the partners you are likely to choose, which are all social influence can have a big, big impact on that. And before we say, oh, really, Chris? I say, yeah. So if you had the choice of like one career that was satisfying or one career that would pay more, which would you err towards and why? And like, whose values are they? Right? Little example. So when you start to understand how much of society and social conditioning has an impact on you, where in this space can you claim what is truly yours, what you truly think, what you truly feel, what you truly want, and whom you truly want to be? And this is before we even get into all the social media stuff, which we'll get into later. It's just a whole bunch of other noise. So this is why we're having this episode.
Yep.
When we live in a world of social noise, and we all live in a world of friends, family, and parents, how the only way you'll probably find what it is that you genuinely want, or genuine satisfaction, or genuine success, and all these sort of things, is by spending some time on your own once a month, driving out into the wilderness with your dog to figure out what is it that I actually want and think. Broedy?
Yeah. Yeah. Podcast over. No, it's interesting to hash these things out, you know. And like I said, I do at least a little bit of exploring in my head at very minimum on the episodes before we even get to recording. And
of course, yeah.
One of the things that I came to is I just had this, and we talked about it last episode. I just have this reoccurring voice in my head that says, if you're not comfortable in here, then why would they be comfortable with you? And and it's just been incredibly helpful, to be honest, because it just gives you the perspective of the fact that you can wear all these masks, you can do all these things like you're talking about it, but the basis of who you are you running from that? And what's funny is if you are, and you are hiding it, and you know, this kind of thing, I've found, at least when I'm doing that, it doesn't fucking matter how many people are around. It doesn't matter how many conversations I have. It doesn't matter how many parties I go to or how many beers I drink with friends. It doesn't matter. I'm still alone as hell. And I think a big part of that has to do with, like you were saying, the fact that I can't even flesh out for myself who is that under there, you know what I mean, that actually wants to say something and be something or do something or make somebody whatever the fuck it was, you know. And like I said, it's so crazy to get to these conversations, start having them, and you're like, god damn, you know, even though for myself I've thought about it a little bit, I really don't think I've taken inventory of how much censorship I put on myself, you know, through my life. And granted, I'm kind of I wouldn't say unicorn. I'm not like trying to throw fireworks for myself, but it's I've never cared too much. You know what I mean? Like I've really had the objective opinion that, again, up here is what matters. So if I'm comfortable here, it doesn't necessarily affect me if I am alone, right? It's like that's the consequence of not being the mask, you know. And I think at a really young age I came to grips with that. And I'm curious for you, because for me it came from, and this is just dead honesty, it came from the fact that I did not have a very playful or engaged father. He would teach me how to play by myself.
Right.
And look, I'm not talking about in the fucked up, like, you're not worth my time, go
No, yeah,
fucking over
yeah,
here.
yeah, yeah.
But you know, like, teach me how to use my imagination so I could distract myself, and teach me certain things within sports and practice that, you know, make it easy to function on your own, like within what you're doing, and still feel like you're doing something. I also had a sister that was 4 years younger than me, and that was only sibling I had living with me. So that was, I love her to death, and we had a great childhood together, but I didn't want to play Barbies, you know? So
Yeah.
again, I had to come to grips with the fact that, you know, I was either going to be playing Barbies or begging for someone's attention,
Right. Yeah.
or
Yeah.
I'd
Yeah.
have to get comfortable by myself. And I did. I got very comfortable. I got it, like, again, even I think 10, 12 years old, I can have very vivid memories of me being like, no, I would like to be in my room alone right now.
Hmm.
And and again, I don't know if that necessarily came from something that was essentially healthy, but I think the outcome has been healthy, because
Yeah. 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 Yeah.
I think a lot of people are just so afraid to sit with that. They're so afraid to be okay with themselves.
Well, I wanted to go back to something that you said earlier, and I took a note. It's like, you know, passing the test of being okay on your own. And it's great phrasing, because I suspect that there is a lot of people who are really, really uncomfortable just being by themselves. And this
I know a
isn't
few of them.
right. And this is without criticism. It's just with observation. Because my question then is, why so? You know, whether it's the friend who jumps from relationship to relationship because, or it's the friend who always used to be out or doing something, or seen to be doing something, or seen to be included. You know, it's whatever it happens to be. And like, obviously, like, social media is like huge with that. Like, everyone's always doing something, going somewhere, been somewhere. You know, that sort of
YOLO and FOMO.
Yeah. So for those, if it was a test, if the test was to survive on your own for a week, you know, could you do it? Would you do it? And if, like, what terrifies you about that? You know?
That's interesting. I want to ask some of the personality types that I know that exact question. You know, could you do it? And if you feel you could, is there a piece of it that scares you? You know, because
Yeah.
like we were talking about, it's almost like we are wired the opposite, where it's almost, I invite the let me slow down there. Let me slow down there, because I had 5 kids and I really don't actually like fully being alone. You know what I mean? But like I was saying, it's just funny because, and that probably came from my fucking dad, my, you know, business oriented sales dad that was like, you know, check the box, you know. And for me, I just needed to figure out something that checked the box. And for me, that phrase was it, you know, like, did I pass the test? Am I okay here alone? And being able to conceptualize it that way, I think really helped me as a kid. Really helped me, because it was almost like, you know, you'd watch like your animes or your weekend cartoons, and the hero arc is always that training. There's always some training you're doing, you know.
Gotta have a
And
montage.
right. And for me, that was it. You know, it was all the times that I was able to go play basketball alone. It was all the times that I was able to build a city in my mind. It was all of these things, you know, that ended up, like I said, what most people would look at as the consequence of being alone. Holy shit, I was so bored and so alone that I created a city in my mind. Yeah, that's cool, bro. That's fucking cool. That's not scary. That's fucking cool. Have you sat in your mind to the point that you can actually visualize something so tangibly that you got to do something about it? You know, like those things in my life too have only come from a place of solitude. I don't necessarily have those giant aha moments or epiphanies or eurekas when I'm surrounded by a fucking grip of people. It's really hard actually for me, if I'm being honest, to step outside of what we were talking about, where it's like I don't necessarily wear a mask, but there's a lot of filters. There's a lot of filters I'll put up because I got a dirty mouth, Misfits. I got a you know I got a terrible mouth. There are certain situations where you could not catch me cursing. You wouldn't be able to pay me, and that's again that conditioning and those masks and those things where it's it's funny, like we were talking about. Do you ever feel in those moments that the filters present or the masks go on? Do you ever feel in the moment the inauthenticity, or is it something for you that hits you later? Because I'll be honest with you, I'm uncomfortable every motherfucking time I have to do it. If I can genuinely feel the constraints I'm putting on myself because of the situation, I start to get itchy as hell. Seriously, get me the fuck out of here. I want to say fuck, piss, shit. I want to leave. I want to be comfortable as me, and like I said, I think almost to the negative side of what I was talking about, the detriment, the consequence of, for me being so comfortable being alone, is that I am uncomfortable not being able to be me. Because fuck, when you're alone, you can sing and make funny noises and parody yourself or your life or talk to yourself, whatever the hell it is. But you go do that in public, So I mean, is there an uncomfortableness? Do you feel it in the moment, or is it something that, like I said, that later on, which I feel like for a lot of people, they go, ooh, and they have to shake it off, and then they realize, wow, that didn't feel good, kind of thing.
Generally, I have to psych myself up for it. Like
so you already know before even.
Oh, bro, 1,000%. And I know it's like I know the role I have to step into. Like every time I do a keynote, right? Like I can, at least I'm allowed to show up in the hat. Because even showing up to corporate for like first time interviews or first time sit downs or whatever, if I don't wear the hat, they get pissed. If I do wear the hat, they go, "Who's this eccentric fucking weirdo?" So at least, okay, so for keynotes example, and it's same but different. It's like you show up and I know I've got to present in a certain way, which is which isn't like authentically me. If we're saying that, if anything, I'd say it's like this real, it's a transparent skin that I've actually got to stand like 2 or 3 inches behind. So like that's the facade that you're talking to. Like I can see through you, you can see through me, but you're not looking at me, sort of thing. And so I'll do that, and I'll play that game, and I'll be professional, and I'll be polite, and I'll phrase everything in a PC corporate way, and I won't swear, and I won't say it's a fucking stupid idea for these reasons. You be very patient and sort of lay things out. That's the other catch as well, and I've got to work at their pace, which is extraordinarily frustrating for me a lot of the times. So it's just like deep breaths, because and this for an introvert is exhausting. And so then, but I know it's normally like
not
the day
uncomfortable, exhausting.
Both.
Okay.
Both.
Okay.
Like, because it's just you've got to keep this thing up. So going back to acting training, like I understand it's a role that I play, but so you sort of step into this thing and step out of that thing. But what a lot of people don't quantify is like how much energy actually goes into like a 1 or 2 hour performance every night of theater, right? And so imagine you're doing this for 5 days a week for a fucking 6-week contract or whatever. So it's slightly uncomfortable, but it's like that warm bath you kind of get used to. It's absolutely exhausting. So by the time you get home, you shed everything, like, fuck. It's just shower and tap out of the lot. That's professionally. Personally, I sort of, unless I can find a person or persons to just connect with on a slightly deeper level, it's just frustrating and annoying and noisy. And of course now I'm at that age where I'm like, I don't have to tolerate this. Right? It's like I said, 1 hour, 60 minutes. I'm there. I showed my face. I'm polite. Done my thing. Unless there's someone I can connect with. Merci. Au revoir. I'm home, bro. I'm good. But in my like 18 through to maybe even early 20s, there was still that expectation of like, you've got to be out, you've got to be here, you've got to be a good time. Can't be the first one to go home. Even though I'm not drinking, I'm fucking designated driver for everyone. All that sort of shit. And at some point, it was like, I'm an adult. I don't have to be here, and I don't have to tolerate this, right? And so if I'd say that was the first, if we're talking about if we're talking about it, like that was sort of the first step in becoming okay with detaching from expectations of group, of community, of society, and going, no, this isn't, not for me, thanks, and going home.
Which, interestingly enough, that's, theme of the episode. That's lonely, Misfits. I'm sorry. As much as it's comforting for personality types like you and I, that's still lonely, as in I don't need another person, or I don't have to facilitate a conversation for me to be okay. It's really interesting, because the analogy that pops into my head is like I'm like a damn electric car. It's like I've got to go to the charging station away from where home or whatever normally generally is to get that recharge, because yeah, it's a tough gig. It's a tough gig, and I'd more so say this too to the misfit parents right now, because now sitting here and trying to analyze and compartmentalize those spaces for myself, and maybe even realizing that I don't have a ton of them, I just feel for a lot of people out there that don't also have this space where you can have a conversation, and part of the solace that you find is the realization, right? Oh shit, I need a little more alone time. Now that's something I can fix. That's something I can fix. I think for a lot of the misfits out there, they don't even realize, right? Because you get so damn caught up in life and those expectations that you were talking about,
kids,
right?
family, commuting.
You don't even realize
groceries.
you haven't been alone for fucking, not even at the grocery store or the gym. Right. Or like I was like literally sitting here thinking in my head, probably 90% of my alone time is the majority of the 30-minute sessions I have in the sauna. Not a lot of people do the sauna. The times that I do it, not a lot of people are doing it. So that's generally my real, true alone time. And if any misfits have found me on social media and followed my stories and seen me in the sauna, because I post one almost every day, they are just my true, unfiltered, random thoughts that just happen to come to the surface when, again, all of the other noise is gone. All of it. The only thing I hear is the buzz of the heater in the sauna. I wonder how many parents out there right now truly don't even recognize the fact that, and not even just parents, let's not even generalize it to that. Just human beings that don't even realize, holy shit, I am stuck in the race. I'm stuck in the race.
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of playing devil's advocate for all of this, because I'm sure there's people who are like, I'm fine. I feel I'm fine. Like I've got good friends and whatever else. And like, it's sort of overrated, or, or like, what's the point of all of this? And it's, I guess, because yeah, getting to know yourself is super valuable. Yeah, great. Like, or even if it isn't. But if work is your social circle, and if you have a partner at home, and or school, or whatever, if you're always surrounded by people and opinions and noise, and we have a natural inclination to want to belong, so being a part of a community is a healthy thing. It's a necessary thing. We're not advocating for like 100% solitude, because that can be just as destructive as, but
Yeah.
What is, I think, undisputed in the modern climate that we're living in is that there's more social noise and opinion on anything and everything, everywhere,
all the time,
right? Which is just passive, right? So really, really simply, like, if you put, it's like, even if there's studies on people having anxiety not having their phone.
Yep.
And this is directly linked, right? So if you can't, like, put the phone down for any sort of like other connection or other stimulus, and place yourself somewhere in solitude, it would be interesting, even just for that as an experiment. Like, try that for half an hour, like, phone off, go somewhere by yourself, right? And then and see what comes up for yourself. Because what I've been getting into the habit lately is, like, I'm leaving my phone at home more and more often.
Love it. Fucking love it.
So my daily routine, like, 3 times a week, I'm at the pool. So I'm waking up at 6 a.m. I don't need my phone at 6 a.m. So I leave it.
Or while you're in a fucking body of water.
Right. And so I walk down to the pool, swim my laps, then walk back. Again, like, I might go to the cafe, grab coffee, breakfast, and whatever. So by the time I get home, it's probably, an hour and a half, 2 hours later. It might be encroaching on 9 a.m. by then. So, like, unless there's some emergency, why? And the only exception to this is, like, when I want to listen to music, because then it's like, all right, I'll put my headphones on and play it off my phone and whatever. But I am trying to get more and more into the habit of detaching from this thing. I don't have any social media apps on my phone anyway, but just the phone itself.
He wants to burn them all. Misfits.
Yeah, I do. And of course, I'm of a completely different generation of, teenagers and 20-year-olds today who use a lot more apps, engage with a lot more social media for all sorts of reasons. But if we're looking at, even if we're just looking at mental health statistics, if we're looking at loneliness statistics, if we're looking at all these factors that impact us as humans and individuals, and I'm not blaming all of this on social media, but I am saying it's a factor. But, like, a significant step you can take for yourself is to detach from that, to at least have a slice of time per day where you're not influenced by that.
Right.
And it's
wow.
And it's, I'll throw, man, I'm gonna throw back to probably season 2 or 3. And I said I'd never mention her again, but here's a perfect example. Like, Little Miss High Value. So here's someone who chose to take a social media trend or social media set of values of, like, who's high value and who's not, and who's why, and how that dictates rules of relationships and dating. And then, but like that, then tried to present that to me as, like, a fact that she'd learned somewhere. And it didn't exactly work out.
Well, shit. I mean, that's the issue with identifying with things like that. And I think
that's the thing.
What you're touching on right now is exactly,
took something from online and regurgitated it almost word for word, because this is how relationships operate, don't you know? And it's like, like, well, no, they don't. And then, but again, like, this is someone who just, like, taking what they've learned or seen from social media and then respouting it as, like, this is known fact. It's like, do you understand how, like, fucked up those values are in the real world? But again, so if you don't have a gap between what you digest online or around you to process individually to like what's true, what's not, what works for me, what doesn't.
I really fucking love this. I really love this, and I want the Misfits to take this. I'm gonna clip the shit out of this because I mean, really, I mean, this is so real and practical in the sense that you can look at it one of two ways too. This offers a layer of protection. If you can be alone and you can recognize those things, you are of better service to yourself, and most likely
Yes.
because of that, people around you. Now,
Yes.
number two, like you're talking about, if I can identify too the level of influence that is coming in, I can dictate how much impact that influence has on me, or like you said, the time frames that I'm going to allow it. It's
Right.
interesting to me too, Misfits, and I really want you to sit here with this for a second, and he nailed it so perfect. How often are you not under some level of influence?
Mm.
Whether that be because of yourself and what you're consuming on the phone, the situations that you're putting yourself in, the mindsets or framework that you've given yourself to fucking contribute to your identity, which again, that's the big issue here, Misfits, is like, can you identify who you are?
Right. And again, look, if you're happy, there's nothing to examine. You know, if you're happy in a relationship, if you're satisfied with yourself, if your job is doing well and you're ticking every box, then cool. Fantastic. I'm happy for you. This is, you know, these are observations and insight into what one should do if you're not quite happy, or if you are slightly dissatisfied, or very dissatisfied, or, you know, anxious and uncomfortable, but you don't know why, you know, or the career isn't doing what it's supposed to, or I like this person, I don't know if I'm in love with them, and all that sort of stuff. So again, my suggestion is like, rather than pick up your phone and scroll TikToks to go, am I, do I love him, but am I not in love with him? Or like, what do girls really want? Do they really want bad boys? Like all that sort of shit. Like, put all of that down, go for a walk. Fucking, if you want to be a nerd like me, grab a piece of paper and a pen and like write out everything that's going on inside your head. I've suggested it before, like talk to yourself, man. Like grab your phone, put some headphones on, pretending you're having a conversation with yourself and record it. Go to the gym, go sit in the sauna. Spend some time on your own, but dedicate some time routinely on your own, not just a one-off, to really scratch the surface and get into, you know, what this thing is, rather than being influenced by outside opinion. Because let me tell you, and I'm sure you all have examples around you of people who chose the wrong career because that was expected of them, who married and stayed with the wrong partner because that was expected of them, who like end up, like, my greatest fear is being 50, 60, 70 and going like, fuck, like all the shit I could have done. Like, how did I end up here? Like regret, that sort of thing. Now, and all of this is within your control right now. And the solutions don't have to be a 12-step program or anything fucking significant. Like, trust you enough to like spend some time on your own, be uncomfortable, and figure out what it is that, how you really feel, what you really want, what you really think, you know, where you really want to be. Getting back to like Brody's, like, do I pass a test of being alone? I'm going to suggest, and it's going to be spicy, I'm going to suggest the reason many people are terrified of being alone is they're really kind of terrified of the truth of like what's underneath the surface, like what's in the dark water. Because there's something there that you're aware of, that you're,
Oh, absolutely.
you know, actively hiding or pushing down, or like distracting yourself with something else. Like, if you're unhappy, right? If you're happy, cool, you got nothing to worry about. Keep doing what you're doing. Thumbs up. But when we're
Does that exist though? Does that exist?
I'll say yes, but my hot take on happiness is it comes and goes like a lot of other emotions. You know what I mean? It's not, it's an experience. It's not a state of being.
Yep.
Right.
Mine too.
No more than hunger or lust or sort of anything else. But there's elements of satisfaction and self-fulfillment that you can maintain. That's my hot take. But it's, the whole point of Ask Misfits is to talk about things that we don't talk about. And that's great to talk about them. But then, like, what's some practical insight or some practical solutions that I can use to fix if it's not working for me? You know what I mean? And Brody's point is excellent, and it's actually a point that I drew from another video from the School of Life on YouTube on how to be alone and whatever else. It's like, quite often for those of us that need alone time, it's specifically for this, so you can sort of come back, regroup your thoughts, be the person that you authentically need and want to be, so then I can step back into time with you and you get all of me. Going back to what Broedy asked me before, was like, how's that impact? Like, how did journaling impact relationships and shit? And like, honestly, well, because I was given the trust and the freedom and the grace to do so, loved her for it. You know what I mean? And then she got all of me.
Right.
Rather than like 10% spread out over a week, like you got 90% every single day, because that 10% was for me just my time. I'd normally come back and talk to you about what I'd written anyway, and she was involved in my creative projects, and she was involved in like all this other sort of stuff. So you got so much more of me because I would have taken it anyway, but like I was allowed my individual personal time.
I love that. That's
but it sounds like common sense, and I don't know why it's such a controversial or radical topic for some people, especially couples. It's like, if you want time alone, seems to translate as you want to be away from me.
No, look, what I'm coming to realize, and this is through discussions with some of my friends that have been in long relationships, marriages, my own situation. God, and Tiffany, please don't kill me. But look, the thing that it comes down to is jealousy that you don't have the same space. And now, and I don't mean in such a selfish, mean kind of bashing against the walls. I hate you for you getting to go to the gym kind of thing. No, I hate that I don't know what that is for me. I hate that I don't know where to get that. And you see it in couples constantly, right? Because just like the example you gave, someone will go journal, or they'll go to the gym, or they'll take their alone walk, and they'll go, do you just not want to be around me? Do you not like me? Like, what is this kind of thing? And all these like surface level insecurities pop up. But then when you dive down into it and you really start to dig, and again, I've asked this with Tiffany, she just doesn't have that.
Yeah.
So she's wildly jealous of it, and not in a sense that she dislikes me for it. She's just very, very clear on the fact that that is something I also want for me too.
Makes sense.
And it does, right?
Both.
Right. And I've told her too, I was like, because we've had this conversation, because you realize that and recognize that I have that space and you feel a way about it, we can find it for you. Yeah. And again,
we can work with this.
It's fuck, dude, because the inverse is that we just bicker, and I just feel that anything that's of a benefit to me.
You're feel guilty because you take time for yourself, and it breeds passive jealousy and resentment.
And then my alone time, and I've told her this too, this is the thing that I think we all have to be very honest about when it is a situation like this, where it's like, I don't think she was ever necessarily trying to actually guilt me, right? But it was just the lack of information on both sides. Once I got that information, I don't feel the guilt when I'm there. I don't feel fucking bad for doing the things that I've told her I need for myself, because again, she recognized, hey, shit, I might need those things for myself too.
Quick disclaimer while we're here for the boys that are listening: gaming doesn't count.
No, I'm sorry, it doesn't. It doesn't. No.
Right. It might be a good for other things. It might be a fun distraction, but we're not talking about distractions.
No, there's a distinct difference that I think we're both trying to exemplify here, and this is my thing too, and why I so adequately say that this is a test. This is a test. This is a test, and if you can't pass it, there's some issues you need to look at, and that may be in one department or another, but they are there and they're present. Same thing to the testament with video games. Don't get me wrong, fellas. I could get down on some hours of Call of Duty. I absolutely could. But at no point in time during that kind of environment or session am I processing or thinking the same way I would be if I wasn't influenced by a situation in the game, somebody talking, an emotion I was having, whatever the hell it is. Can you actually, without the stimulation of something else, sit with you?
So, as we're wrapping up, Broedy, give me some positives. Give me some positives that you've gained, gleaned, learned over your lifetime of being alone and having alone time, and how that benefits you.
I'm just going to keep it simple. I
Okay.
am. I like who I am. That
Good
is
answer.
the biggest benefit that solitude has given me. And sometimes it wasn't necessarily voluntary solitude that gave me that perspective.
Yeah.
But nonetheless, it was the dark. It was sitting in that water and really willing to put my head underneath and say, holy shit, there are some things under there that, I wouldn't necessarily go and share with everybody in the world, right? But I'm comfortable sitting next to it. It doesn't scare me anymore. And I'll be honest, as much as I had to adapt to being alone, through my environments and my life, like I said, I didn't necessarily like it. So the other positive too, to me, to this is like, just like that training montage we were talking about, I really worked that muscle. I really, really worked that muscle. And not only do I like who I am, I also like when I am alone because of that. So it's just those two fundamental things that, like, shit, if everybody was wiped off the face of the planet right now, I wouldn't go blow my brains out. I would grow old and die. I don't think a lot of people would be able to do that. I like that. That's that's
the more time you spend alone, the less terrified you become of being
yes.
alone.
Yes. So for you, what about you? All your experiences, all the compilations, all the moments of loneliness. What is your benefit?
I'm gonna be an arts kid. No one creates great art in a group. I've written one book. It's something you can only do individually. Like, yeah, with some support of people around, but it's you alone with a page. I'm about to publish the second book. I'm a pretty decent street photographer. Again, something you only get with hours in walking around the streets with a camera on your own. Yep. I would like to think I'm fairly... Someone we're talking about being single the other day with someone, and they made the comment like at least you're not, like, you're self-secure and you're not terrified of being alone. Like that's leagues ahead of someone who is single and would be otherwise, right?
Well, you got a bunch of dependency problems at that point.
So that was nice to hear from someone that I trust. So there's that. And yeah, fairly self-sufficient in most respects. I've traveled like across Europe on my own, like from Australia to literally the other side of the world. So I'm comfortable, confident, and competent at taking care of myself, who is my first like responsibility. It's interesting. Like you say you like yourself, and I applaud that. And there's times, maybe it's because you have the luxury of family and kids, and I don't.
I do have people that have a strong positive bias to who I am.
Yeah. And so
that's a good point. That's a good point.
Right. And so for me at times it can tip a little bit to the dark. Like, yes, I am confident and secure on my own. I'd kind of like someone. And I kind of like a regular best friend. I miss that. I miss having like a regular
But
best
I don't
friend.
think that means you don't like yourself.
No, that's true. But I'm just saying, like, we've talked about all the positives of being like alone and like having that time. And I'm just going to touch on the dark for a little bit because we can't ignore it. Right? I mean, I'm not going to paint. We're definitely not going to paint loneliness with the entire brush of depression, anxiety, and all that sort of shit because that's completely untrue. But I'm flagging that, like, yes, as confident as I am in my own skin, there's still that spice of this is a factor that I do have to deal with. And whether I was being in a relationship or being surrounded by friends all the time might not necessarily fix it. In fact, it hasn't. Something that you said early, I can't remember what it was, but it triggered a thought of mine the other day because I tend to beat myself up because I'm single. Not that going on dates, whatever, but still single. But then I've made the conscious effort through journaling. It's like, cool, every time you want to write something negative or you have some of these dark thoughts, I want you to find the positive spin. I want you to actively find the positive take on this. And so the fact that I'm like still single, I'm like, yeah, but also like I'm turning down all the transactional casual relationships that waste my time and cause me more suffering. That's a massive positive, Chris. Also, like, I'm not stuck in a sexless, dead, toxic, like nasty relationship that I can't get out of or choose not to. So those two options are infinitely worse and worse for me over a longer period of time than being securely single and going, this is actually a choice. This isn't a punishment that's inflicted on you. You've made self-aware choices to put yourself
because
here.
You're absolutely right, Chris. I mean, there's not a single doubt in my mind that if you wanted to just go down the street and find something like you're talking about, transactional or surface, you could easily, you're an attractive, smart guy. That would not be a hard feat for you to come by.
Broedy. Do you have a sister?
I do. She just got married. But look, this is kind of my point. Like, it's
actually, I'll stab. Actually, wait, just while you're there, I'm going to stab this. I'm going to stab this beast right now. Right.
Okay.
And so the moral here, folks, is that had I not spent 30, 45 minutes journaling about this and going into this with me, Chris talking to Chris, going like, yeah, I know you feel like this sometimes, bro. I know you'd love to beat yourself up. That seems to be your kink, but let's not do that. Let's find a healthier option. You go, okay, Chris, and then write out the healthier options, and the healthier options are longer, far more significant than what you judge yourself for, right? Or, and I come up with that as a solution to live by. I go, let's try that, right? Alone time at the cafe. Or I could Google, why am I so single? Get 10 hot steps to have a date. I can go onto any social media app and go, why don't girls like me? And be fucking spammed with shit.
Stereotypes and frameworks that are supposed fucking...
or the bro culture who is just like, bro, they're all like that. They're just, what you got to do is you got to level up. You got to be high value. All this sort of shit. Or I can sit with myself alone, ask the really uncomfortable questions of like, I'm single and I actually judge myself for that. Should I? Isn't it a failing to be a guy at my age and not have like a regular partner, and like actually get into this shit with me and then come to the conscious decision that no, it isn't. And no, it isn't. And that doesn't diminish worth or like whatever else. Then, Misfits, have this conversation with you and not be terrified of whatever your judgment is going to be. So,
yeah,
there's the moral, right? You've got two options. You can stick with the social crowd and what friends and family are going to tell you. There might be some insight in that. Take that insight go away, think about it, really chew on it, and ask yourself the uncomfortable questions. And that's when you start to get to the truths. That's we don't have time to talk about it. Never mind. We can save it for another episode. Sorry, B. That wraps it up. Any final thoughts? Any final thoughts for alone time and being a loner?
No, just put yourself to the test. I mean, just like you're talking about.
Half an hour
yeah.
a day.
And really, it doesn't have to be anything ridiculous or crazy. It can truly just be setting your phone down, taking a step outside, and not allowing the influence of the world to communicate with you. And just, what am I thinking? Fuck, how many of you ask yourself that? What am I thinking? So
start small.
Yeah, that's all I
Beautiful.
got.
There you go, Misfits. Be more loner. Find more loner. That wraps up episode 54. Episode 55, B, do you know what's coming up?
I do, only because it's the season structure.
It is a bit of a layup. It is a bit of a layup. We've got the interval coming up next, Misfits. So we'll talk about whatever's going on and whatever we want to talk about. If we've seen some good movies or watched something good on streaming, who knows? We'll talk about whatever's going on. You get a little peek behind the scenes of the Misfit curtain for the interval. So that wraps up episode 54. As always, you can find us at promisfitspodcast.com. You can find the link to Camp Misfit, which is our Patreon, where you can support us, buy me a coffee so I can write more deep and meaningful thoughts in my journal. Broedy needs glasses. Broedy always needs glasses.
I do, please.
You get Misfit discounts. You get full access to the season 1 video archives, which were never supposed to be seen, but Broedy saved them anyway. You can find us on YouTube, and you can find us on Spotify, and find us on LinkedIn if you're really that way inclined. The interval is coming up next. In the meantime, I've been Chris.
I've been Broedy.
And you be loners, Misfits. We'll see you on the next one.